before I wouldn't give myself the grace to fail, and so I wouldn't give myself the permission to try.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I've been there.
And now it's like, okay, cool. So I messed it up, but it'll still work if I change this one thing.
Welcome to Stories of Creativity. I'm your host, Jo Vertis, and this is the third and final part of my interview with Sarah Christensen. There's a lot of wisdom here for anyone who wants to break past previous limits and get into new creative territory. Enjoy. Are there any creative projects that used to intimidate you that you ended up being able to accomplish? And what changed that enabled you to take on those challenges?
Anything that requires math beyond simple addition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not real good at math. I'm not great with figuring out angles, and so any building project that requires that kind of skill is still kind of intimidating, but I have figured out hacks along the way. If I think that I need to cut something at a 45-degree angle at, a board that's 37 inches long and I need the end to be at a 45-degree angle, you can bet I'm going to cut it 39 inches long at a 45-degree angle, because if it's too long, I can always take a little more off later,
Smart.
For a long time, I would not have even attempted, because if I didn't get it right the first time, I was never going to get it right. I have a lot more grace for mistakes, and I have a lot of hacks or tips and tricks that mean that mistakes aren't the end of a project. That means I don't have to necessarily go back and buy new materials because I screwed it up, that kind of thing. I'm a lot less uptight about errors, and a lot of good enough is good enough now.
Nice.
It didn't used to be. If there's a gap in the finished product that I really needed it to fit tight, guess what? They make expanding foam for that. I mean, It's not as pretty, but it does the trick. So, it's almost a level of flexibility that I didn't have before. Not just, maybe just cognitively, but it feels like before I wouldn't give myself the grace to fail, and so I wouldn't give myself the permission to try.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I've been there.
And now it's like, okay, cool. So I messed it up, but it'll still work if I change this one thing. And also, they make expanding foam or latex sealant or whatever it is that I need to fill in the gap or to smooth over the mistaken part or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it won't still function. Which,
well said,
for so long hasn't been kind of part of my mental landscape at all. Like, it has to be done exactly right, and it has to happen on the first try. And if I don't think I can make that happen, then I'm not even gonna attempt.
Right.
And I'm able to not be like that anymore.
Yes, awesome. Do you find that the more experiences like you have, like that you have, of getting through a project that didn't go right the first time and finding a way to make it work, the more confidence you have about trying new things and other challenging projects?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that having the experience of actually trying and having something mess up but still work, I think that honestly, the more I give myself permission to try the things, whether they work or not, the more I realize where my limitations actually are. The more, like, there was so long that not only would I not try to do the thing, I wouldn't ask my husband for help. I wouldn't bring in a professional. Like, I would just give up on that idea completely rather than ask for help. Now I know where the line is, where I can figure this out and I'm going to keep trying, versus I have an idea, I don't think I can accomplish it on my own, let me go ahead and involve somebody, versus, hey husband, I know that we are probably capable, but we don't want to waste 3 weeks and $700 in resources attempting, so maybe we should just hire somebody. You know, because I have gone through the stages of learning what I am capable of, what will work in the end, even if it's not perfect, and what really does need more assistance, I'm more willing to tackle projects that are bigger, that I know will need assistance in the end. Like, I know where the line is when I need to ask for some help versus feeling too stupid to ask for help, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because there were so many projects that I would just like not even attempt because I knew that I would wind up feeling stupid, or I assumed that I would wind up feeling stupid. And now it's like, no, I know that I'm confident and capable. And so if I feel like I need help, this is actually a spot where I can actually ask for help.
So great. I was just going to say, I bet that's really impacted your confidence.
Yeah.
And again, knowing yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like I'm much more able to self-teach and much more realistic about the limitations. Because, you know, before it was like everything would seem so insurmountable that I wouldn't even want to try. And now it's like I have the confidence to try, and I have the discernment to know where the limitation actually is legitimate and where I'm just fooling myself.
Right.
You know.
So I would imagine in a way you feel like you can trust yourself more, that you will know how to not get into an overwhelming situation. And you'll know
that's a good way.
How to get help if you need it. And
yeah, that's a really good way to think of it. Yeah. Trusting myself, trusting that I know, trusting what I'm capable of, and trusting that I'm not lying to myself when I've realized that I've reached my limit, or a limit that even if it is something that I could learn, like, yeah, I could learn it, but also I need this project done now, not in 3 weeks when I've learned the thing. So it's okay to enlist some help. Yeah.
So cool. I just did something similar to the expanding foam, in my opinion. As a creative project, I decided to write a children's book about diet, actually. And
cool.
I figured I could, over time, develop the skill to illustrate it, but I don't have that skill right now, and I didn't want to take that much time, and I wanted to make it available sooner. And so I used some AI tools and some, graphic design kinds of resources to illustrate it much more quickly. And it's really empowering to, I guess, to not limit ourselves, to see what do you want to prioritize, where do you want to spend your energy, what's the most important thing to you, and then being able to find a way to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. It's, before I would look at a project like writing a book and give up on it because I didn't have the skill to do it all on my own. But being able to figure out, like, exactly like you said, what are my priorities in this situation, and which are the things that I want to go ahead and farm out, for lack of better words. Like, what are the things that I can control and that I'm in really good headspace, ability space to do? And is it worth it to me to figure out all the other stuff, or do I want to enlist help, use other tools, whatever it is? Like, having the brain flexibility to do that is something that's still feels very new to me.
Yeah.
So it's really, really, it's empowering and liberating and freeing, and it enables so much more creativity when I'm able to be flexible within the abilities that I know I have, so
yeah. Totally.
Like, flexibility was never part of my mental landscape ever.
Right.
And all of a sudden here it is, and my children are probably like, wow, I wish that came 10 years ago, but
yeah,
whatever.
Well, so do you, obviously.
Yeah, it's true.
Well,
but it's here now, so I'm going to use it for the rest of forever.
You get to be this version of yourself and better from here on out. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's exciting for your family too.
Yeah, we are all benefiting from it.
No doubt.
And my children, like, even as they're moved out now, like, they got to see this part of me for the last 8 years, and they've seen how things have developed over these 8 years. And even, they don't eat low carb or keto, but like, it's on their radar how much of a difference it can make.
Right.
Because they've watched me for the last 8 years. They know that, there were years that mom just was on the couch. They know that there were years that they had to go to daycare because the state stepped in and said, you're not allowed to be with your children all day, every day. We're going to pay for you to send them to daycare because, we don't trust you otherwise.
Oh.
So for that to have changed to being a person that can manage this little less than an acre farm, that's pretty amazing. And they've gotten to watch all of that the whole way. So, if they ever get to the point that they need it, when they decide, number one, I'm a resource, and number two, they know that this is possible.
Right.
Even if they wind up with doctors that say, oh, it's just a fad, don't bother with that.
Right.
Like, they know better.
They know different from watching you. You're a good example. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So would you have any advice for someone who wants to create useful things like you do and learn new skills, but feels intimidated, other than try the ketogenic diet?
I think that finding experts in whatever field you're looking at getting involved with, whatever kind of project it is that you're wanting to do, whether it's sewing or home canning or raising a particular kind of animal, like, the internet is a fantastic resource. And finding an expert or a group where there are experts about that topic is a good way to get advice and ask questions. It's also important to keep in mind that a lot of those people have been doing it for so long that they might see your questions almost as a duh, so if you keep that top of mind going into it and say, look, I realize this might seem like a completely duh question to somebody that's been doing this forever, like raising these animals. Most people would have been learning this when they were 8 years old in 4-H. I'm 46 and I never did 4-H. Like, treat me like I'm new at this, like you would treat the 8-year-old 4-H'er,
Right.
I think going into groups like that with that attitude, and even just laying it out in your questions that way, like, yeah, this seems like a no-brainer, but I'm brand new, is a good way to get advice without being belittled, or without the way their responses come in to feel belittling. And that's one of the first things that I ever did with dietary changes. With I used to do some sewing for an organization that makes purses for girls in Africa. And I didn't sew before that, really. I had so many really basic questions, and by framing it as, keep in mind, I'm just very beginner at this, helps to set their expectations, also helps to set my expectations for the answers that I receive. And that has been one of the biggest helps for me, I think, because my mindset previously had been so inflexible that reminder of, my level of ability here is of an 8-year-old. And so to treat myself and to treat the advice givers as though I am at that level, as a reminder to myself that no, I can't expect myself to be a 20-year proficiency level when I have been doing this for 0 minutes, And that seems really like I've rambled a lot there, but I think the upshot of it is that a constant reminder to give myself grace is something that I have really had to develop and has served me probably the most well of many things that I've done. Because if I wouldn't judge a brand newbie for it, I can't judge myself for it either.
Those are great tips. I love that. Ask for help. Remind them that you're a beginner, and remind yourself that it's okay to be a beginner.
Mm-hmm. And I think that going along with that, when you're a beginner, part of being a beginner is, yes, I don't know the things. I don't know what this stitch is. I don't know what that cut is. Or I don't know, if my rabbit is supposed to look like that or whatever it is. I don't know the things, but also it's a reminder to myself that criticism that comes in isn't directed at me personally either. Because, the idea that I have, like if somebody tells me that won't work and these are the 3 reasons why, a lot of the time I would get offended until I would remind myself that I'm a newbie at this. Of course I didn't know that. Of course I didn't think of the nuance of this won't work now because 3 steps down the line it's going to fail in this way, because I don't know what the 3 steps down the line are. So I think it has helped me to also embrace corrective advice as corrective advice and not as criticism. Not as me being stupid, as me being uneducated, and how those are different things,
I had a lot of issues with that same thing, being oversensitive to people's correction and judging myself.
Yeah. And when you get in a group of experts that really are wanting to be helpful, I have found this especially in the animal husbandry stuff with raising the rabbits and raising the chickens. And these are people that genuinely want me to succeed, genuinely want my animals to have the best life that they're going to have. And, again, just keeping that top of mind. Like, they're not judging me personally. They're not trying to insult me personally. They're trying to make sure that my animals have the best life possible. And so this piece of advice isn't meant to hurt me, even though that's how my brain initially may have wanted to interpret it. Just keeping that constantly at the top of my mind. I'm learning, I'm new at this, and not just the top of my mind, but being willing to remind other people, hey, I know that this is old hat to you, but I'm brand new, please treat me gently.
Yeah.
Being able to say that and willing to say that have made a phenomenal difference in how, I don't think the advice that I get is any different, but how I perceive the advice and how I'm able to apply it is so much better and so much different when I keep those things in mind.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories of creative projects that you'd like to talk about?
I'm not sure how creative I guess it is kind of creative. My husband and I had to replace the center pin on the tractor that we bought recently, and found that there are replacement parts available, and that because it's an out of manufacture tractor, the replacement parts are absurdly expensive. And between my husband and my dad and me, we figured out how we could use a 7-inch bolt as a replacement piece instead of buying the $230 part from the Tractor Parts ASAP website,
Awesome.
Right? I took video, like Andrew took it all apart, my husband took it all apart. I took a video pointing at the various things and sent it to my dad, and my dad's like, I think it might be that part. Do you have the manual? And we looked up the manual online, and, this collaborative effort came to, we fixed the problem for $1,250,
Nice.
So
that totally counts as creative in my book. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was a family group project.
It was fantastic. And,
so cool.
My carport was taken up with tractor parts it only really took 2.5 weeks, I think. And that was just because, we were working on it here and there, bits and pieces, going to the stores in between. Like, he has a regular full-time job. And so I think we got it done grand total. Once we figured out what the problem was and what the part was that needed to be replaced, we got it done before we could have actually had the part ordered and shipped to us.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
It was pretty fun.
I was thinking about, how does this skill of resourcefulness that you've developed and learned from your dad, how does that help you? And I was imagining it was saving a lot of money and perhaps also time, because if you have something at home that could work, it saves you
definitely
going to the store and shopping and finding it and ordering it or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely a time saver most of the time. I think I built the brooder box, the most recent one. I got it done in 4 hours. Like, it would have taken me just as long to go to the store and pick up the prefab thing, and then you still have to comes all disassembled in a box. You still have to come home and put it together, and Lord knows if the instructions that come with it are comprehensible and accurate, and if all the parts and pieces are actually going to fit, and
right. Right.
So, and just, you don't get the same sense of pride and accomplishment when you've put together a prefab from the store as when you've looked at a planter and turned it into what you need,
Exactly.
So
that's one of the things that I love the most too. It's just that feeling of, wow, I didn't think I could do that, or it never occurred to me I could do that. And then doing something where you surprise yourself. It's so rewarding.
Yeah. And I will say, not all of the projects have wound up being money savers, but in the end, I still have the sense of accomplishment, whether I saved money or not,
right. And that's a boost to your quality of life that you can't get by shopping for something.
Right. Exactly. Definitely. And it helps me to gain that experience too.
Yeah.
To know that, sure, I can do it myself, but it's going to cost more than if I would go ahead and break down and go to the store and buy a thing. It's another piece of experience that helps to inform the future, where in the past it would have been, well, I'm not even going to try. Now, at least I know that, sure, I can do it, but I can't do it cost effectively. So next time, maybe I'd better go ahead and purchase something.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been learning similar things. My motivation was financial. I was on a very, very small income for a very long time, and I'm pretty sensitive and pretty picky about things. So I wound up just asking myself over and over again, could I make it? Could I make it and make it how I want it, in a way that I can afford to get it? And a lot of times I could. A lot of times it ended up taking more time than it was worth. So
yeah.
I'm weighing those things now too, and have a much better feel for how to make the most efficient decisions for where to apply that resourcefulness.
Yeah, exactly. Part of the resourcefulness is knowing when it's beneficial and when it's not. And, that's a skill that we've now got the mental clarity to develop.
Yes.
And, it's a part of the whole growth process to be able to apply the resourcefulness, apply the homemadeness in the most beneficial ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a skill in itself. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Not really.
Okay.
I'm just really excited to talk to somebody else that's, having the same. There he is. Having the same journey and learning the same things. Like, cool, it's not just me. Look at that.
Yeah, right.
Come here, baby.
Right. Oh,
I know.
He's a cutie.
Little guy. He just had a bath yesterday.
Sweet.
Bath and a haircut.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and sharing all of those ideas with us.
You bet.
Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share, or leave a comment. Have a beautiful day with your creativity, my friend. See you next time. Bye.